Welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast series with U.S. Navy Special Operations veteran, CEO, and hockey fanatic Bob Pizzini. Bob discusses leadership, success, failure, defining moments, and hard lessons learned with guests who are intentional in their approach to leadership. Leadership is a perishable skill. Use it or lose it. In this series, entrepreneurs, industry executives, academics, public figures, and other highly effective professionals share their formulas for success with you.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Elevate Your Leadership podcast with me, your host, Bob Pizzini. Folks, if you've listened to my podcast, or if you've read my blog, or if you've perhaps ordered a copy of my book, which is available on Amazon now, Elevate Your Leadership, you know that health and wellness is critical to leadership. That's my view. That's my lifelong experience. 26 years in U.S. Navy Special Operations, and now 12 years in the private sector where I own my own multi-million-dollar business with 40 employees. Health and wellness is what I have to focus on first for myself and immediately after that for my team, for my teammates. It's something I've experienced and lived my whole entire life. I'm opening with that because today's guest, Coach David Greenwalt, is a exercise coach, a health and wellness expert, and it is so awesome to have him on the show to discuss something that I believe in with all of my being. And in the screening for the show, it didn't take long at all for David to demonstrate to me how dedicated he is and how proficient he is and how experienced he is and helping leaders be the best they can be by applying principles, basic principles, but David can really get advanced, but basic principles of health and wellness. Okay. David Greenwalt is a certified health coach, fitness expert, and author. He's a husband, a father, a former police officer, a gym owner, competitive state-level bodybuilder, and power lifter. In 1997, at the age of 32, with a body weight of 235 pounds, David discovered an evidence-based approach for getting off his own 50 excess pounds, for shedding 50 excess pounds and keeping it off for 25 years and counting. Since 1999, through his company, Leanness Lifestyle University, David has been helping student members from every walk of life lose excess fat, keep the muscle, and manage this crazy life. David, welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, folks, I'm really excited about the discussion we're about to have. As I mentioned, health and wellness is key to leadership as far as I'm concerned. But like I do with most of my guests, I want to take a moment to get to know David Greenwalt. Dave, where are you from? Where did you grow up? And how did health and wellness become your life's pursuit?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I grew up in a small town, Northwest Illinois, hometown of former President Ronald Reagan. Dixon, Illinois is what it is, just a town of about 15,000 people. Pretty much stayed there the first 47 years of my life. I'm in my late 50s now, but for some reason, it's been in my DNA since I was a kid. For some reason, I've been interested in fitness. When in grade school, they had the President's Physical Fitness Award, the Council on Physical Fitness. I wanted that so bad, and I got it. And I was like, I am getting this thing. Anybody else would say, why do you want that? I don't know, but I want it. And it was that demonstration of the ability to do these things and to have this level of measured fitness at the time. I was 10 years old, 11 years old, and I wanted, and I got it like 2 years. I was so happy and proud. I still got the patch and the sticker and even the certificate in a box somewhere from way back then.
I remember those, all three of them. I remember all three of them.
Yeah, it's and so for whatever reason, it's been in me now. Without making it too ridiculous, I was a police officer, and but before that, I was a police officer in the city of Dixon. Yep, I started off as a city police officer, and then I became an Illinois State Trooper.
Okay.
So did that, but prior to that, I had been bodybuilding and powerlifting, and again doing those activities at a competitive level. Got on, the police departments had to pass their physical fitness requirements, and then I went to Northwestern University and became a police physical fitness instructor for, when I was on the Dixon Police Department. Anyway, it's just been in me. It's just been something I've been interested in. What happened is, after I got on the state police and I got back from the academy and I got back home, I started a supplement company. I don't sell any supplements now, but I started a supplement company then, and that was 1992. Okay. And I wanted to sell enough supplements to pay for my own protein powder. That's all I wanted to do. That was my goal. I already had a job. I was a state trooper. I just wanted something on the side. There was no internet. It was just, whatever. And what I did is, I started in this teeny tiny little room in our small home that wife and I owned at the time. And I grew that company into 45 employees and about 7 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
7 0 or 7?
7 million. No, not 70,
wow.
7 0.
Okay. Yeah.
Not 7 0, 7 million. And that was over the course of about 6 years. That starting from that one little room, putting ads in the back of magazines. I
was probably one of your customers.
Maybe a toll-free number, that was it. And then the internet came. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because the internet came and we had, I had over 100,000 customers, who had bought from us over the years. And they started emailing me, "Hey, Dave, real quick, can you tell me what I got to do to lose 30, 50 pounds and keep it off for life?" In an email, real quick. And, I did the best I could in the short time you have in an email. And I call it, bumper sticker, back of the napkin, fortune cookie answers. Right. And I realized very shortly that I was really doing them a disservice. But I also realized that I had a tremendous passion for wanting to help people get to whatever better place they want to be. It's not about getting everybody to get a six-pack. It's not everybody to getting everybody to do whatever. But from where you are, some unhealthy place, heavier place usually, to some place healthier, and usually at a healthier weight. And what happened was, so I'm running this company. It's at its peak. It's doing very well. I had an appointment with a marketing, I'll say guru at the time. He was a consultant. I flew from Illinois down to Arizona to meet him. He was very established, well respected, and we were going to talk about my supplement company. Then the night before our full day meeting, which was like a $4,000 a day meeting to meet with this guy.
Wow.
Back in 1998.
Who was it? Joe Weider? Arnold Schwarzenegger? Who was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. But it was somebody that has worked. He at that time he was working heavily in the sports supplement industry and fitness and all that stuff. But anyway, so he said, "Hey, you want to go to dinner?" So we went to dinner, and he was asking me, "I bet you've got a lot of testimonials for your supplement company." And I said, "Yeah, I've got lots of testimonials." And I really thought about what those were. And remember, I'd been doing the emails and I had this in me to like, gosh, I want to help people. And I know I'm not doing them, the justice. And by the next morning, I went and he goes, "All right, let's talk about supplement company. We're going to get it going even more marketing and I said, "We're not doing that." He goes, what do you mean?" And I said, "We're not going to talk about the supplement company." I said, "We're going to talk about we're going to talk about what I need to do to get a lifestyle coaching company going, because that's where I'm going." And so we talked about that for, 8 hours, 9 hours that day. I came home, started writing my book. A year later, the book was finished. The internet was in, I with dial up, there's no fast internet, 98, 99, not really.
Right.
With dial up, built the initial coaching program online, wrote the book. You could tie it all together. I'm going to say it this way, because I was there at the very start of when the internet was really usable for us. It was amazing. It's still amazing that there was this two-way communication you could actually have finally. So, as an author of the book, and you're an author, way back, if you wrote a book, how would you have two-way communication? Somebody might send you a snail mail, ask a question, you may answer, who knows, but it was not this back and forth. Well, the internet made all that possible. And what it also did is it gave me the platform to now really be able to dig in. My book was almost 500 pages, and I really wanted to be comprehensive on nutrition, exercise, and emotional fitness, that third leg that a lot of people will miss, that emotional fitness leg. Anyway, brought all that in, was able to start coaching. And again, that was at the peak of the supplement company. I ended up selling the supplement company, and I was like, I'm going all in on Leanness Lifestyle University, because that's where my heart is. That's my passion. That's the legacy I want to leave I want to, as the marketing guru was asking me, I bet you've got testimonials. I didn't want my testimonials on the back of my headstone to be his protein prices are really great.
Yeah.
I wanted to be, this guy helped change my life.
For sure.
He
For
helped
sure.
get my life back. He helped da 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 da. And I
For sure.
that's what was in me.
What year
so I
was
like
the
to make
book
that,
published?
it was published in 2002. So it's been out for about 20 years.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But I mean, that, the fact that you addressed mental and emotional wellness back then, I mean, it only became really mainstream, I'd say, just in the last few years, maybe in the
Yes.
last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
And myself included, my awareness of it is fairly recent, but I believe in it so much. It's half of my book.
Yeah.
I talk about components of health and wellness as it relates to leadership. So that's incredible. So you wanted to dedicate to get away from supplements. You sold the company. I hope you
Yep.
made a lot of money. We're all good capitalists.
Yes.
And
That's right.
and so then you transitioned to just working with clients one-on-one, or what was the next step?
Yeah, it started, it's been a combination over the years, and it's evolved over the years. So there's been times, and there still are times, where it'll be one-on-one, kind of C-suite, executives and so forth, one-on-one. But most of it is group.
Okay.
And that's kind of how, and what the internet allowed me to do was, by being organized and being a systems type person, I've been able to organize and systemize the processes that, through evidence, I'm a very evidence-based person, through
For
evidence-based and experiential-based, I've
Yep.
been able to systemize the processes so that they are step-by-step, so they're not overwhelming, and deliver that so that groups of people, because there's only one of me.
Right. Exactly.
And fortunately, because of things like this and video and stuff, you could have 100 people on or 1,000 people on, and you
Yeah.
can coach in that way. But as far as getting people what they need each day and all of that, anyway, the internet's made all that possible. So it's still an amazing thing to me.
Well, this episode will be watched by millions and millions across the globe. So
That's right. Good.
so we definitely love the internet. No, I get what you're saying though, because I'm in the leadership space, but it's the same thing. I love my in-person events, and my whole leadership offering was, the genesis of it was, we do an in-person event here at iFly Virginia Beach. We have the flight experience, which is part of the, face your anxiety, face your fear, tackle the unknown, get outside of your comfort zone, and your comfort zone expands. So we'll go all over the place, because health and
Sure.
wellness, like I said, it's so it's so relevant to me as a leader, to me as somebody who wants to be energetic and alert and aware and go snowboarding for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Right. And
Right.
me as somebody who wants to make sure that my team is highly energized and highly alert and highly aware through health and wellness. But you said that a lot of people's health concerns or their goals, you referenced something about usually through weight loss or something like that.
Yeah.
Just briefly for me, Navy Special Operations background. In my 20s, it was run as fast as we can, lift as much as I can, Navy diver, dive as deep as we can, jump out of airplanes from the highest altitude, make the biggest explosion possible.
Yeah.
And in my 30s, it was pretty much the same. In my 40s, it was healing from all the damage I did in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But in my 50s, my main measure of health really is my labs. And as somebody with cholesterol, that's just ticking up a little bit, and something I have to pay attention to. But there's no doubt that my lab work correlates to my level of energy and my level of awareness. So in your consulting and in your work with clients, how do you approach that? If somebody comes to you and says, I'm tired, I can't focus, I can't concentrate, I'm carrying more weight than I want to, what's your approach there?
So first of all, we want to meet the person where they are. That person could be, everything isn't about weight, but let me just put it out there this way, so that some people can at least understand the maybe way opposite ends of the extreme here. Someone could come to me dissatisfied, not feeling that good, maybe mentally foggy, joints ache, fairly low energy, and they're only 15 pounds above where they want to be. So it's not a big deal as far as the weight goes, but it is a big deal to them because they've struggled for a year, 2 years, 5 years to lose those 15 pounds and feel better. All right. Then there's a person who's 300 pounds overweight. They come to me as well. Again, mentally foggy, not moving well. Everything hurts. low energy, so on and so on. And they've got a tremendous amount of weight to lose to actually feel, really good and feel their best. Opposite ends of the extreme here. Maybe the one person's 80, 85% there, maybe not, but maybe they are. And the other person, let's just say they haven't walked more than 10 steps without needing to sit down and catch their breath. Okay. The person's really just deconditioned and they're just, okay. So opposite end. So talking to them and giving them the exact same thing is not going to make any sense. So we have to meet each person where they are. So, and then there's this everything in between, right? So we do look at that. We want to meet you where you are, but all throughout, if you're like in your case, you're looking at biomarkers, and so what we're going to do is we're going to not prescribe, but there is a framework. There's a nutritional framework that we're going to start with. And there are, 15 nutrition fundamentals that we're going to just make sure
evaluate.
And we're going to make sure that what they are. You're going to get to the point where you're like, I know them, I got them, and
just got to do them. Just got to be disciplined and stick to it.
Yeah, there's almost, there's somewhat of a hierarchy to it. But anyway, we don't overwhelm it, and you never have to be perfect. But we've got a nutritional framework that if you're 15 pounds, you're going to follow that nutritional framework. The guy that's got 300 pounds to lose, he's going to follow that nutritional framework. It's going to look a little different for him, but
different.
Framework's going to be the same, right? We don't need a completely different. It's kind of like medicine. We go into a doctor, and fortunately, we're all different, but fortunately, we're similar enough where physicians can go, okay, you're still a human being. Okay, you still have a heart here, you still have lungs here, you still have kidneys here. You still have enough things similar where we can at least start with a framework, and then we might have to adjust it depending on the individual. It's the same thing with us in this. We're similar enough where the outcome that you're looking for, in your case, let's say I want to improve my biomarkers, want to reduce my cholesterol. We're not going to try to be your
testosterone being one of those biomarkers.
Yes, testosterone. Right.
Yeah, and I don't mean that jokingly. I mean that's something that somebody my age keeps an eye on.
Yes, absolutely. Right there with you. Absolutely. So we're gonna, but the prescription, so to speak, is going to be similar on the framework there nutritionally. Exercise wise, we really got to see what's going on there. We could, my thought that went through my head, Bob, when you were, you've talked about your history, is you're just built different. You're just built different up here. And I don't mean like,
that's a military mindset.
Yeah, you've got a special, and I mean in an all positive, respectful, awestruck way. What it takes for you to do what you've done, you're just built different there. So when I deal with, I may deal with that person, but I may deal with somebody who's just more everyday.
Gotcha.
And so when it comes to exercise, typically, no, we're not going to say as fast as you can, as heavy as you can, as hard as you can, we're going to be like, where are you at? What have you done? Okay. Again, meeting where they are. And we're going to start getting the cardiovascular and strength training aspects in place. We are from the get-go going to focus on strength training in addition to the cardio. We're not just a cardio only type of company, because strength training from the get-go, no matter what the goal is something that we want to be involved in.
Yeah. And again, for me, I mean, I used to, I read the Schwarzenegger books when I was a kid, and that's how I lifted back then, but that's all anybody knew, right? That was the leading science, if you will. And working out today is totally different. It's so completely different, low weight, high rep, just to briefly, hit the surface on something. So I've completely changed it, but I'm also 57 years old, and, things start to hurt a little bit more. And my goal is longevity, it's energy and clarity and longevity. So, okay. So, by the way, you've got an excellent TikTok site. Can you tell the folks real quick how to find you on TikTok?
The easiest thing to do, and I'll just say this because the TikTok, the URL, I don't even know what it is, but if somebody goes to lluniversity.com, all our social links are there.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to find us.
Okay, good. And lluniversity.com, Lima university.com. And the reason I bring that up is I was looking at Dave's TikTok postings, and they're very concise and they're very direct. They talk about very specific topics. And if you want to know about, should I do cardio or should I do weights, he'll address that. Or what should my heart rate be in a workout? He addresses that, very concise. And I just, as somebody who is educated regarding physical physical wellness, physical health, exercise, etc. I found every one of your videos enlightening. Some of it is reinforcing what I already know. Some of it is reminding me of stuff that I knew that I haven't been practicing or exercising lately.
Sure.
And then a lot of it is new information. And a lot of this information is so new, just like when we talk about brain and heart health. A lot of neuroplasticity, for example, and I have to be careful about rabbit holes with listeners, but neuroplasticity, in my words, is the brain's ability to grow, change, adapt, and heal. And when you elevate your heart rate to what my doctors told me, when you elevate your heart rate to between 60 and 85% of your age recommended maximum, your brain triggers neuroplasticity like a light switch. And so my entire adult life, during my PT sessions, my physical training, strong body, strong mind, we hear that all the time. The good idea happens either during a run or after a training session, shortly thereafter. Well, that's because neuroplasticity was triggered simply by elevating my heart rate. And so that's my kind of real brief discussion along those lines. Do you want to add anything to that component?
I love your concise definition of neuroplasticity. It's better than I would have said it. It's a future TikTok 1 minuter, for sure, but I love it. And I totally agree. There's as a friend of mine who we briefly talked about before the podcast, as a friend of mine who was in, the Navy as a Navy diver says, if you're looking for an argument, we're going to have to change subjects, so we're in total alignment there. And I'm totally with you.
Yeah, that's cool. And again, these are things I learned about 3 years ago, and it was life-changing for me. And so for me, the science of leadership, and we're going to transition to our leadership discussion because I know you've worked with leaders, and I love the way you have observed leaders and how they prioritize their health and wellness. But for me, the science of leadership has 6 components: rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, or you could say brain and heart link, because they're communicating with each other billions of times a day. And lifelong learning is the last one. And lifelong, the first 5 sound very physiological, and lifelong learning doesn't sound physiological, but it is, because when you learn new things, you trigger the N word, neuroplasticity, and it's very important. Okay.
Absolutely.
So David, health and wellness for me as a leader, I've got to be on top of my game. How do you work with leaders to make sure they're on top of their game? And what have you observed? How does our discussion apply to leadership?
Absolutely. So if I can take 10 seconds to just piggyback on exactly what you said, your definition, of leadership, or the qualities that make a good leader or that help facilitate good leadership. It's so, see if what I'm about to say aligns similarly, but this is my category is strengthening personal growth and emotional fitness. And here's what I have there, just kind of the nuts and bolts: focus, gratitude, worry control, connection, compassion, the right food, the right exercise, sleep, mindfulness, faith, not necessarily religious, just are you in sync with your core spiritual values, wherever they are, fun, relaxation, and personal growth. All those fall under the umbrella of, in my world, of emotional fitness. And I just, as you were saying, yours, I was like, there's so much synergy there between what you're saying, and how they impact being a good leader, having good, strong emotional fitness. Because let's face it, without good, strong emotional intelligence, good, strong emotional fitness, the leadership qualities are going to suffer.
For sure. They suffer, and everybody sees it. And it's observable. I've been guilty in the past of not being stable. I think a lot of the things you just mentioned, and I don't want to make this a science class, but a lot of the things you just mentioned, those ultimately fall under the autonomic nervous system, right? It's either our sympathetic nervous system or a parasympathetic. When you lose control, fly off the handle, your sympathetic nervous system is taking you out of the driver's seat. And so, your emotions are heightened, your blink rate goes up, your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your peripheral vision literally narrows.
Yes.
And when you don't have control of that, you are taken out of the driver's seat. And as leaders, that's a problem.
Yes. And just to piggyback on that, again, under that emotional fitness umbrella, because in my world, I've got two different kind of areas of three legs of a stool: nutrition, activity, and emotional fitness support the permanent weight management, overall success. You've got to have all three, because I can teach you nutrition in about an hour. It's not right true, but I mean, just for the sake of this discussion, I can teach you what you need to know about nutrition in about an hour. I can teach you what you need to know about exercise in about an hour. But that emotional fitness leg, or in your case, the leadership qualities, are what's going to keep those other two things on point, so that in the stressful time, in the busy day, in the craziness that is the day, when you're stressed, when you are feeling like you're overwhelmed, when you're emotionally fit, and there's a strength there in those areas that we're talking about, whether it's leadership or emotional fitness, whichever language we're using, you're going to make the better decision more often. Like you said, in your case, you're talking about flying off the handle, not making a good decision. If you're emotionally fit, just from my chair, from my perspective, I deal a lot more with people making decisions on their food, people making decisions on whether they're going to exercise or not. They made a promise to themselves, they break the promise because they're stressed. They made a promise to themselves they were going to do X, Y, Z, and instead it was, an entire pizza or whatever the case was, because they felt overwhelmed, they felt whatever. In your case, is flying off the handle, but it all transfers so seamlessly to the everyday qualities that good leaders need. We need to be able to think clearly. We need to be able to not fly off the handle. We need to be able to have a confident, measured response, and if we're more, right. And so,
just a note on measured, the measured response, it has to be measured in all scenarios, right? Somebody could come through the door and say, Bob, you're not going to believe this. I've got some terrible news. And my response should be, tell me what happened, in that tone. Somebody could come through the door and say, Bob, you're not going to believe this. I have some incredible news. And my response should be, oh, that's great. Tell me what happened. You want to be the same person as a leader to those you lead, and being, and that's enabled by managing your health, your wellness, your emotional, et cetera. So, so David, tell us a little bit about some of the leaders that you've worked with, and how, what you've seen and how you help leaders in this capacity.
Yeah. So, over the years, I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with Fortune 500 individuals. I've worked with Academy Award winners. I've worked with people that have in a variety of sectors, lead people from anywhere from, 10 to thousands. And what I have found is, it's not leadership is leadership, but to a certain extent, there's obviously huge variance on what the roles be. But from my view, which is not your expert view of leadership for sure, but from my view of leadership being the ability to influence or guide individuals or groups toward the accomplishment of a common task. That's just me. I'm a health coach, and I'm 24/7 health coach. But when I think of leadership, that's what it is for me. And of course, when I had the supplement company, I had 40 some employees, and I led there as well. Continue to lead in various ways, but that's how I see it. And what I find is, kind of across the board, and working with a wide swath of leaders in various roles, they so often don't put themselves high enough on the priority list. They are,
in terms of health and wellness and fitness.
Yes, instead of health and wellness, right. They're incredibly driven toward the organization's goals. They're incredibly driven toward others and serving others and serving the organization. And they will, unfortunately, not put themselves high enough on the list. And the thing is that some people say, look, as the leader of my organization, I've got a lot to do. There's only so many hours in a day. Whatever the case may be, I can't put myself number one. Well, I've been coaching for 30 years. I've been online for 23 years. I haven't met anyone who's been successful at the fitness weight management game, unless you're, an Olympian and you have to do it for a full-time job. Whoever puts it in the number one spot. So, what I've found typically goes in the number one spot is earning a living. It's putting food on the table, whatever that takes. And people will go to unbelievable lengths, no matter what it takes, no sleep, whatever it takes to make that happen. And then the second thing that typically in the hierarchy is whatever it takes to serve those who depend on you. And then at best, fitness comes in that third spot. And so, but what happens is for a lot of leaders is they, again, not putting themselves high enough in this regard on the list, they don't put it in the third spot. It's in the 5th, 8th, 20th spot, whatever it is.
Wow.
And their health and fitness suffers while they're accomplishing, these other goals.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my thinking on how it typically works. And what I find with leaders is that they're incredibly driven, incredibly smart, incredibly compassionate, typically toward the others that they're working with and the goals that they're wanting to accomplish. But through all of that busyness, they lose sight of their own.
Yeah, their health is declining, basically.
Their health is declining.
Their health and wellness is declining. And I think, and again, I look back over 26 years on active duty and now 12 years in the private sector. What's my energy level when I was 20, 30, 40, 50? What's my mental clarity when I was 20, 30, 40, 50? And just to kind of help reinforce what you're saying, leaders often put themselves second, third, fourth, in a variety of categories. But when it comes to health and wellness, you have to put yourself first, because the more you take care of yourself in that regard, the better leader you're going to be, the more you can take care of other people. And it's simple. It's science. It's not a mystery.
No.
And just like 3 years ago, things were getting foggy for me. And, I built my business and built a career in the military and now in the private sector. And 3 years ago, I was sitting here looking at my computer screen going, man, if I had to do all this over again, I couldn't. I didn't have the mental clarity and I didn't have the physical energy. And I was like, I've got to do something about that. And thankfully, as a veteran, I was able to use some of the veteran programming that was, for me, it was life-changing, absolutely life-changing. But it was the focus on health and wellness. It was a refocus, really. It was prioritizing it appropriately. So again, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but that's what you're seeing. Leaders put health and wellness 3rd or 5th or 8th or 20th.
Yes. And they've got all this. So often what I find is, early on in my career, I'll just say early on, one of the first surprises I had when I was very young in this field is when I had my first MD, my first physician come on as a client of mine. Well, I was, a health coach at the time, very early in my career. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you here? I'm thinking, you went to medical school. What you know about the body is amazing. Why are you here? And what I realized, and it transfers over to people are people. Now, we're not all the exact same, and I get that, but people are people in the sense that we're all human. We all have emotion. We all have, kind of the variety of needs from the hierarchy and the pyramid, the whole thing, whatever. But what I find with leaders is that they have great intelligence. They're driven, and they want and need incredible energy. But a lot of them, just like you said, are suffering in the energy department, and they don't know what's going on. And it's so incredibly powerful when it comes to, especially ultra processed foods, what we're putting in our body, and what we're doing to our bodies by not moving enough. Okay. And by what we're putting in our bodies that is lowering energy, lowering cognitive function, increasing depression, increasing dementia. And the other thing too is that I can speak for myself that, oh gosh, what's it been? 15 years ago or so, I was, you think about it, in the 90s, it was low fat. Okay. Low fat. We got to do low fat. As long as it's low fat, you're good to go. Go to Subway, get a chicken, get the baked Lays. All right. It's low fat, and I can go no sugar. I can get a diet pop, or whatever soda, whatever, I can get a diet pop, baked Lays, and a breaded, whatever thing. Okay. On whatever their flubber. Chicken in quotes. Yeah. With their chicken. Right. And then, all this. All right. So you get all that. And here's the thing. And this happened to me. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate, as you can hear, about what we put in our bodies and what it does, is because I got depressed. My wife at the time asked me, she goes, "Why are you depressed?" And I shouldn't say I wasn't at the clinical level, maybe I just didn't go, but
Yeah.
I was low. And I was like, my wife said, "Why are you depressed?" And I said, "I don't know. Beautiful wife, home, nice, beautiful kids, amazing kids, life good, business good, finances good. All the things that you got it." And I was like, "I know. And I am low. I'm just low. Why am I low?" And it wasn't until I figured out for myself that the industrial additives, chemicals that are blah, 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 blah in the ultra processed foods, I'm sensitive to those, but I'm not alone. Most of us are sensitive to some degree. Again, we're all human. We all have some levels where we will have similarities, but it's not all the same. But for me, I was highly sensitive to it, I'll say. And when I got rid of that 90%, never 100%, you're not, but when I got rid of it 90%, all of a sudden the clouds parted. There was a blue sky up there. And I went, get this. I went, "You got to be kidding." And I went, "You know what? It must have been that I had a good business deal. I'm probably just in a good mood. Wife was nicer to me today. I had a good business deal, whatever. I'm probably just in a good mood. It can't be that I got rid of the low fat processed stuff. It can't be." And I went, "All right, I'm going to do a little test. I'm going to go back to the low fat processed stuff." 3 to 5 days into that.
Yeah.
I'm like Eeyore, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a black cloud hanging over my head,"
Yeah.
And I'm like, then I said again, I go, "You got to be kidding me."
That's a cartoon from back in the 80s, folks, for those of you who
It's right.
who are a little bit younger listening to this cast.
Since Bob and I won't ask birthday. I know you won't ask mine, but since we are exactly the same age in year, we both know what that is. But anyway,
Yeah.
with Eeyore and the black cloud, I had that over me again. I went back. I said, "You got to be kidding me. I'm going back to unprocessed whole real food." 3 to 5 days later, clouds parted. Anyway, I'm just saying that it isn't just me. It's not just old Dave is sensitive. It's not just whoever.
Yeah.
There's now a lot of good research coming out more and more and more.
Can you just mention a couple of the foods that you turned off and had the positive result, turned them back on, had the negative result, and then shut them off permanently?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of put it in a class, and I'll just say, ultra processed, whatever. I mean, breads, pastas, whatever, cereals, okay, whatever. Whatever it was. And I even tried to play a game. This is something I was like, I was resistant to it. I was like, this can't be. I'm like, I've heard of it. I know about it. But if you remember in the 90s, it was just coming in. The research on ultra processed food was just coming in. Now the research is just mounting massively on its impact on cognitive function and depression and anxiety and all the things that we know it does. It's not just old Dave Greenwald. But what happened was I tried to play a game. I thought, well, you know what? Hey, gluten's all the rage. Maybe I need to go gluten-free. Well, what I did was I stayed ultra processed, gluten-free. So I was ultra processed, but I was gluten-free. And when I realized that did nothing for me. All right. So it's not the gluten. Got rid of the gluten, stayed ultra processed. I was like, I don't know which chemical it is, but I'm not going to try and figure it out. There are thousands of chemicals ultimately in the stuff. So quit trying to figure it out and go to real food. And every time I went to real food, brain cleared up, energy cleared up. I'm like I am today. I'm good. I feel wonderful. And,
what does ultra processed mean? How can I walk down the aisle at a grocery store and say, nope, that's ultra processed? Oh, that's good. That's not. That's not.
It's a great question. So what I like to do is just kind of flip it. And I like to say, what's real food? And everything else will basically be processed or ultra processed. Okay. So if we kind of look at real food, is whole or minimally processed food. Okay. Minimally processed, like something like oats, they can be ground. That's not all, it's taken out, it's been ground, and that's it. Nothing's been added to it.
Okay.
Right? So something like that, it's not like nothing can be processed at all, but it's whole or minimally processed food that only contains ingredients commonly found in kitchens. Okay. So if you're, if you were to ask, well, give me a specific list of the ingredients I need to stay away from, I'm not doing it.
Okay.
There are thousands in the store packaged foods that are out there. There are thousands. I'm not going to run down the list. I'll say the real food definition again: whole or minimally processed food that only contains ingredients commonly found in kitchens. So after it's been removed from nature, the edible part of plant and animal that's been removed from nature, it's either whole as is, or it's been minimally processed and it only contains ingredients commonly found in kitchens. So if that's the case, then it's real food. Anything else is at least processed, and probably in our world today, probably ultra processed. So go through any fast food restaurant. And if you look at the list, it's probably going to not fit real food.
I mean the Five Guys double cheeseburger doesn't cut it.
Just barely outside the margin. Just barely outside the margin, Robert. Yeah. So when I come at it that way, because the reason I do it that way is there's so much stuff out there that says don't eat it if it's got more than 5 ingredients. Hell, I don't care if it's got 50 ingredients. They all need to be things commonly found in kitchens.
Okay.
Well, don't eat it if you can't pronounce it. I don't know your vocabulary. A lot of people.
That's a good one. I like that.
A lot of people, and I don't blame them. They can't pronounce quinoa, but quinoa is a good grain. So it's like I don't know if you can pronounce it, so I don't use that as a measure. It's not number of ingredients. It's not whether you can pronounce it. It's the whole or minimally processed foods that only have ingredients commonly found in kitchens. So that's the base.
Okay, folks, we are going to take a quick break for capitalism. We're rolling right along here with Coach David Greenwalt. Coach Dave, fascinating discussion. We're talking about health and wellness as it applies to leadership. And if you are in a leadership position, anybody in any leadership capacity, your personal health and wellness should absolutely be your number one priority. We will be right back. Quick pause. I'm going to delete that out. We will be right back. Quick pause for capitalism. And we are back. We're talking with David Greenwalt, Coach David. We're talking about health and wellness, how to live a long and energetic life. We just wrapped up a discussion on having foods that are more natural, less processed, and fascinating discussion. David has worked with, as he said earlier, Fortune 500 companies. He's worked with Academy Award winners and people who lead organizations from 10 people to 10,000 people. So fascinating. David, who are some of your oldest clients? What is the age of some of your oldest clients?
Interesting. I've got clients right now in their mid 80s.
And like highly energetic, highly alert, highly focused, or these are the, okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, they're, starting this in my early 30s, you think about what you thought, how you thought about life and people and things in your early 30s compared to now, since you and I are, exact same year anyway in age. I think differently. And one of the things that's surprised me a long time ago, it's not a new surprise, but it surprised me a long time ago, is how much people still care. I used to think my grandparents, I don't know, what do my grandparents care about fitness? I didn't think about what they thought about fitness or health or all that stuff.
For sure.
But, and I love it. I love that there's a huge number of people that are like, I want to feel the best I can every single step of the way until I take my last breath. And I don't care if I'm 80 when it happens, or if I'm 90 or 100 or whatever I am, but I want to feel and I want to be able to go, do everything I want to be for as long as I'm here. And so I look at it. So I'm just always excited about it. And a typical person in their 70s or 80s that comes to me typically is just wanting to just tune things up. They're just, they've been living a lot of life. They've got a lot of life experience, which is great, but they still struggle in a lot of these same areas that so many do. And so, again, the prescription has a framework, and then we tweak it based on, their goals and where they're at, what they want to do. But, a 30-year-old comes to me and says, I want to be in special forces or whatever. Okay. And they're physically capable and able and all that kind of stuff. We're going to have a very, very different exercise regimen going on for them compared to that 80-year-old. So there's all these differences that we're going to bring into play and make them appropriate for whoever it is. But I'm no longer surprised. I love it. And I'm always excited when I get an opportunity. You know what? I'm excited at any age, but I would say that I get especially excited when a 20-year-old comes in who is not in good shape. And you go, oh my gosh, if we solve this now, you are going to be so far ahead of so many people, decades ahead. So if we can do that, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I have so many people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and so forth that, and so that's the thing. But also I feel that way about the 80-year-old because I'm like, that's awesome. You've made it this far and you want to feel and be and do better. You're still not just satisfied to just, go into, the sunset.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. To accept lesser performance or to accept pain, pain is a factor with me, given what I did for my military career, and I've had some surgeries. So stuff I'm always dealing with, but it's stuff I'm always trying to, I'm not just trying to deal with it. I'm trying to eliminate it, or I'm trying to, reduce the pain through exercise and through natural methods, diet, exercise, etc. And experimentation, right? And that's the other thing I think in terms of leadership and in terms of the overall nature of our discussion is everybody is different, and you opened with that basically, and we have to experiment. I have to experiment. Does this different food group work for me? And I hesitate to use the word diet, but diet doesn't mean the weight loss plan. Diet means what am I putting in my body?
Right.
And does this particular diet work for me? Does the fast work for me? What do you think about the 12-hour fast, the 18-hour fast, et cetera?
Yeah, intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding, that kind of stuff. I think that as more research comes out, what they're finding is that it's a viable option for certain individuals as far as it being perhaps as effective, and in certain people maybe more effective at weight loss, but it's definitely not anything universal across the board as far as it being better. There was a lot of information early on, as stuff is when it's early on, that came out that said it was going to make for sure longevity and cellular differences and autophagy differences and all these kinds of things. And one of the things that drives me nuts, Bob, is when people speak commonly in absolutes.
For sure.
It's
I have a section in my book that says we never speak in absolutes.
Gosh, okay.
Although I just said we never speak in absolutes.
Yeah, right. But it's like, there was a phrase in 2020 with all the craziness that we were all going through. I was like, I'm coining this certainty 2020, because people were like, I am certain of this. Well, time restricted feeding, intermittent fasting had those people as well. Even medically educated individuals that were saying certain things, what they're finding is maybe on the longevity, maybe, but don't get too crazy with that. And as far as the weight management goes, your mileage may vary. Okay. Use it, because one of the things that can happen with it is it does compress the window of when you're going to, if you're going to do like a 16-8, for example, you would fast for 16 hours and you're given an 8-hour window where you can eat. And typically with intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding protocols, they don't necessarily get into much into what to eat, but it's when. And so on a 16-8, it might be set up where you would eat only between noon and 8 p.m. Okay. And all the rest, you're supposed to be fasting. What I have found with my clients in the real world using this is overwhelmingly, if there are issues regarding compulsive overeating, which is very, very common, much more common than people think, if there are lapses, decrements, deficiencies in overall personal growth and emotional fitness that just need to be shored up, and they're not making good decisions, what I always say is the person finds a way. So in 8 hours, you go, well, I can only eat for 8 hours. The person finds a way to overeat in 8 hours.
Yeah,
So then what they've done is they went 16 fast, 8 eating. You know what? That didn't work. I still out-ate it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a 20 and a 4. So 20 fasting, 4 hours of eating. Okay. So now I'm eating noon to 4. Yeah, but it's nonstop. They find a way. They brought it all the way down. You may be aware of this. They brought it down now to OMAD, 1 meal a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. People are doing it in 1 hour, 23 fasting, 1 hour. This isn't as common as the 16-8, but it's out there. And they call it's abbreviated OMAD, 1 meal a day. And what we're finding is if they don't have the other things in place, if we aren't addressing the compulsive aspects that are affecting that person, and the emotional fitness aspects, and the aspects that affect willpower, which is why power, if we're not addressing those components and the level of real food versus ultra processed food, if we're not addressing all of these things, even in 1 hour, the person finds a way. So I'm not against it. It's a potential tool to give guidelines or margins, so to speak, on when to eat. And if those, let's say, kind of like the old bumper pads at the bowling alley, if those bumper pads that keep the ball, at least in the lane, help, I'm for it. As long as we don't say it's 8 hours of whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you still have to have some discipline and eat healthy and avoid those ultra processed foods regardless.
Bring them down some. Bring it down a notch. Yeah.
So I did the 12-8 for about 3 months and saw some, I dropped 5 or 7 pounds, I'd say, in the first maybe 3 weeks. Then things kind of stabilized for a while, and then maybe the third month I dropped a few more pounds. But it was, for me, it was easy about half the time, and it was a little bit more difficult about half the time. So,
right.
And then, the next thing I read was 12, just a solid 12-hour fast, and then get your heart rate up while you're in ketosis first thing in the morning before you eat again. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. But again, the point here is it's constant experimentation, right? There's no magic bullet. Everybody's different, and we have to keep on trying. Okay. A fascinating discussion, Coach David, and I can and will discuss this with you a lot more. I want to say real quick to our listeners, if you like this discussion, if you like the energy, if what Coach David and I are talking about is useful to you, subscribe to my YouTube channel and tune into all the other episodes and all the other content I have on YouTube. And the whole point of my podcast and my YouTube and my blog, everything is to bring value to you. And that's because people like Coach David that I speak to, they bring great value to me. So I will make modifications based on the discussion that David and I had here today. And I hope you will too. At the end of the day, we want to be healthy. We want to be energetic. We want to be alert. We want to feel good about ourselves and others. And, what we're talking about in terms of health and wellness, fitness, et cetera, that's the key component. I think without that, you're limited in your longevity. So, David, what haven't I asked you? What else can we share with the listeners?
I think that it's important that people know if they are struggling with either the mental side of things, the energy side of things, or some weight related side of things, which I say that because, again, leaders being people and society being 70% overweight, 43% obese. I can't say specifically, and no one can,
Is that America? That's
America. That's United States. Yep.
70%
overweight, 43% obese, up from 15% obesity in 1970. That as a whole, your listeners are likely, even though they are higher level leaders, thinking, functioning, this kind of thing, if they need to be or they want to be, they're probably maybe not at those levels, because that's just the broad brush across the United States. They're probably going to be less, but there's probably going to be some issues there. With that being said, I want to let anyone listening know that this isn't your fault. Okay. The messaging that's been put out for 50 years has been incomplete. The messaging has been inaccurate. And I don't look at it as there's a malevolence here. I don't look at it as like, you are purposely being harmed and there's a conspiracy theory. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that overall, the messaging has been ineffective. Eat less and exercise more, take personal responsibility. That's all there is to it. Come on. The research is out. It's strong. It's growing of the incredible negative impact, the compulsive nature of ultra processed foods and its impact on people to be able to be a consumer rather than a user. And what's happening is ultra processed foods are creating users, which has to be treated differently and thought of differently. than a regular consumer who just, you make the decision, you don't make the decision. I want this,
Yeah.
I don't want this.
Yeah, well, they're marketing heavily. I mean, the Doritos in the Super Bowl commercial, right? I mean,
Yes.
they are marketing. That's what people are up against. People who want to do the right thing, they're up against
Right.
these levels of marketing that are just scientifically designed to get them to go to the drive-through.
Absolutely. We live in an incredibly obesogenic environment, and it is, and that is true. And so it's important that, again, it's not your fault, but it's important that you get the right information, however you get it. But it's important that you get the right information so that you can address the factors that really drive willpower. Because a lot of people say, the problem is that I feel like in this area, I just don't have enough willpower. And that's not true. You may not have enough why power, okay? Because why power drives the willpower.
Yeah.
So that's a factor to consider. The ultra-processed, all the aspects of ultra-processed food and what it does on compulsive eating, potential food addiction issues is very important. And then the emotional fitness leg of the stool and personal growth is always important. And we've got to have all of those things. Why power, all of the aspects related to the proliferation of ultra-processed food, compulsive eating, and emotional fitness. It may sound like it's overwhelming. It's not when it's delivered. And again, in that I'm a systems guy. I'm a step-by-step, kind of, let's meet each person where they are and take them step by step to get them into this. But you can win this. And I want people to know that you can get better mental clarity, which is incredibly important. Oh, one of the things you asked,
100, yeah.
Oh gosh, one of the things that I just thought of, because you asked, is there something else for leaders, for anybody, but for leaders especially? One of the things that's going to have the most impactful, where you're going to make the most impactful difference on the influence of others in that positive, ethical way, is relationships. And if you're a grouchy, grumpy son of a gun, and you're like, I don't want to be this way, I don't know why I'm this way, it is what it is. It could be all of the factors that we've been talking about today.
For sure. It probably is.
That you can control. And I always say, you may need to go to a physician, you may need to go to a psychologist, you may need to go to psychiatry, you may need to go and get help, but don't handicap them by continuing to consume. Remember, I talked about my own depression and how it cleared up so amazingly, in my case, without any drugs. Not that I probably shouldn't have been on some, but I didn't do it. But I got to the point where, by the appropriate, for me, removal of the ultra processed, it was able to clear up the mental side of things. But those relationships, personal relationships, the professional relationships, mood, temperament, patience, all of those things are going to come in and be a huge factor on leadership. How you feel about yourself, it all matters. The confidence that you have when you walk into a room, all of those things matter. And all of those things, as Bob said, are evidence-based, proven, factually controllable. And the thing I like about it is controllable.
Yep.
Within your abilities. And you can have that, you can just have that super positive impact. This is not a hopeless cause. I don't care if you are our age or 20 years older than us listening to this. Whatever your past has been, your future does not have to be that, whatever it is. And even if you've eaten junk and maybe you haven't been that big on exercise, on regularity of cardio and strength training and so forth, that doesn't mean that you can't, when you see how it can be done and how it can fit into the crazy busy lifestyle that you probably have. So I'm very hopeful, because the same old messaging has to end. And it in my world, it has ended. And I make sure people know what's really going on, what they're really facing. Who is your real opponent here? What are the real opponents here? Who is your real? Your real.
Yeah, you're
foe.
up against yourself. You're up against yourself. Who's going to win?
Right. What are we really up against? And then what tools do we really have control over so that we can positively impact those things? So that was a lot.
That's cool. I ask every guest, what haven't I asked you? What else is there to share? And it always turns into another 10 or 15 minutes, which is awesome. No problem at all. Because I'm checking my notes here and I thought of something I forgot to ask you about. And so alcohol. is one of those, it's, I don't know if alcohol falls under ultra processed or not, but generally speaking, what's your take on alcohol consumption? I mean, don't overconsume. I get that, but
Right.
how does that, how does the consumption of alcohol fit into a daily regime of healthy eating and drinking?
Again, it's an area where research continues to expand, and the latest research isn't positive on, I'm going to say, any amount of alcohol. Now, as a health coach working with clients in the real world, everyday living, that kind of thing, I look at the research and I say, wow, that was powerful, and it was a big study. And then there was another study and another study and another study. And what they've come down to is, even it used to be one is healthy, and even if it's wine, it's even better because of the polyphenols. And
right.
And now they're kind of like, no. And so, but that's that. Where I'm at with it is, as far as everyday living, is going to be just more along the lines of what you said. That 1 or 2 a day and not overindulging is going to be important. It's 7 calories a gram, and there's 0 nutritional quality for the most part in it.
Okay.
And so it's not going to benefit. The best it could do is be neutral if it's in low quantities or low amounts, and it can be harmful if to excess. But
sure.
But I'm not one that I look at it too. If I've got a Churchill quote, I think goes something like, no matter how beautiful the strategy, we should occasionally look at the results.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
that's another episode, Churchill quotes.
Right. I'm like, I can have this beautiful strategy, and the client can basically be following. I can say, we can look and go, how's it working?
Right.
They go, well, as much as I promise myself that I'm only going to have 1 or 2, I typically will have 3, 4, 5, a couple days a week. And when I do that, my inhibition lowers. So it's not even necessarily, the alcohol itself has its effects, but then what happens when inhibition gets lowered? What happens if decision-making is impacted?
Yeah.
And then we go to the finger food and the this and the that and the whatever.
Yeah.
It can happen. So if someone is doing it, and they're doing it in as reasonably healthy a way as they can with the results that we both want, I'm like, life's short.
Yeah.
We're only here for a time, and it's not just to eat, drink, and be merry and whatever, it's not that. But if that's what someone, enjoys, and it's working, and they've got everything from biomarkers, like we talked about at the top, right?
Yeah.
Everything from biomarkers to the other fitness elements, and they're happy with where they are in life and how they're feeling mentally and all these kinds of things. Far be it for me to say, don't do it. That's not how I coach.
Okay. Yeah. If it fits in and contributes to a healthy lifestyle, or doesn't
adversely, right? Yeah.
Adversely affect a healthy lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. Coach David, how can people get a hold of you? I mentioned the TikTok, but what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more about the awesome work that you do, and the passion that you put into it, and the dedication that you have with your clients?
Absolutely. Again, 23 years ago, when I wrote the book and created the online program, had I known I was going to stick with Leanness Lifestyle as a name, I might have reconsidered it, because 2 N's and 2 S's. So as far as the easiest way to get a hold of me, it's the website, and it's just going to be lluniversity.com. And that's got all the links to the other social things.
Gotcha.
It's got to contact us and that kind of thing. So if someone wants to reach out and ask a question or something, they can do it there. But that's the best place to go.
lluniversity.com.
Lima, like you said.
Yeah, Lima University.com. What a fascinating discussion. And I reserve the right to have you back at some point.
Thank you, sir.
Because again, you're feeding me. And if I'm being fed, I know that my listeners are being fed. And this is what leadership is all about. And if you want to live a very fulfilling life, then health and wellness has to be front and center for anybody. David Greenwald, thank you so much for coming on the Elevate Your Leadership podcast.
Thanks for having me, sir. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for listening to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast. To contact Bob directly, or to learn more about how Bob can advance you and your organization through leadership training, team building, executive coaching, and public speaking, visit robertpizzini.com. Robert, PIZZINI.com, and connect with him on LinkedIn.